Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Intrusive Thoughts. I am your host, Adam Rippon, and these are my intrusive thoughts. It's good to have you here. I'm doing well. I feel like my feet are more firmly planted on the ground than they were just not yet even a week ago. I guess even more than a week ago. So it has been yet a week ago. It's been more than 1 week. And I just feel like I'm more like grounded on earth. I will tell you, the Olympic aftermath is really intense to deal with. Actually, every time I do this show, I say to a room that's completely empty at the moment. But every time I do the show, I write down what I want to talk about. And then there's something that happens as soon as we start. I start talking about something completely different. And that's just the way that it goes. That's what happens when the thoughts are intrusive. Okay. So I guess I'm going to start the show off this way. No, whatever. Here we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about being at the Olympics. Now, it's a completely different experience and way, way more intense when you're an athlete than when you're working on the media side of things. So let's start with a little bit like when you're an athlete. When you're an athlete, there is no event like it. And we're just going to talk a little bit about not the competitive experience of it, but just the emotional. So any competition that you might do is going to be an emotional experience. There will be happy emotions. There will be sad emotion. You will go through the entire spectrum of every emotion. And that's also because your emotions are heightened in these high pressure moments. And when I say high pressure, I don't even mean bad. I just mean that the stakes are high. Adrenaline is pumping. Okay. And so when we go to these different competitions, they might last maybe at most, if not 3 days, maybe a week, right? Like the longest competition you might have to do might be a world championship event because there are going to be so many skaters at that event, so many competitors. And so that's 1 week. Okay. Now at an Olympic Games, you are going to be living in that high, intense energy, adrenaline pumping, emotional state for about 3 weeks to a month. Okay. You get to the Olympics 2 weeks before it starts to start training there. That's really intense. You're completely thrown off what your normal schedule is. And you live at this high intensity for such a long time that obviously when you come back home from it, it's whoa, it's such an emotional letdown, which is a normal thing. It's not healthy, or it feels like it's not sustainable at all for anyone to live at such I really don't think there's anything like it. There is really nothing like it where just the entire world is focused on this thing. And you know that, even if you're not focused on it, but you just know that. And so it's such an emotional release, letdown. Because I don't even want to say letdown it's depressing. There are definitely moments where you feel God, I feel depressed. But it's not depressing. I hope that makes a little bit of sense to you, because to me it does. So it's you can feel depression, but you shouldn't feel like you are depressed. I am now kind of losing the plot. Anyway, but it's a very intense, but because it's just, you're going from something very intense into back into your normal routine, which can be intense, but is in no way, shape, or form could even mimic being as intense as being at something like the Olympic Games. And when you're there working, you feel the adrenaline pumping and you feel the stakes and you're feeling for the competitors out there in every sport, anything you're watching, like your heart's racing fast and all of those things. And you're living in those moments. And then it's different. One, because you're not going through it yourself. Like you're not out there on the ice. You're not out there on the slope. So it's like less physical energy, obviously. Right. And, just to kind of make a point about that, what do you think takes more energy, racing down the slopes or having a Coke Zero in a windowless office in the same city, right? Like they're both happening in the same city, but one is obviously burning more calories, right? Even though if I'm sitting there, I'm going, well, our hearts are both beating fast. Like I'm trying to make a point for myself sitting on the couch. You get what I mean, right? Because then as soon as they're done, that's when sort of like someone like me, like your job starts. You want to make sure that you have all the background information on that person. You're preparing all night because you'll be interviewing them the next day. And the whole point of like to do a good interview, I think, is to know just enough about that person where they feel like they don't need to explain anything to you, that they can just start answering your questions. And that just takes another level of like knowing that person. You just need to I could always tell when, as a competitor, if somebody actually knew things about me rather than just sort of asking me questions. And it wasn't even really somebody who I could just tell that they knew about like what I was going through and like what had led me to where I was. They could ask me the same question, but the tone would be different than somebody else who like, and this is like no shade to like anybody. Do you know what I'm saying? Like it would, they both wanted to ask, like, let's say speaking now, like two completely different journalists. They're going to both ask me the same question. One of them completely understands and knows like the journey I've been on to get to the moment to ask this question. This other journalist is like, let's just say that they're like there and they're now covering Olympic sports in the lead up to the Olympics. And they're going to ask me the same question, but in a way where I know that the tone of each question is different. The person who is just here for like Olympic sports, I know the tone that they're asking the question, that for my answer to make sense to them, I need to give them a little bit of background, right? Which is, I think, going to sometimes lead to a less interesting answer. I've given less interesting answers to that question. Now, to the person who I can just feel like they understand and they know a little bit about how we got to this moment where they're asking, like I said, exactly the same question as the other one. But I can answer that question and I don't feel like I need to give them any sort of background on my answer. I can basically give them an answer and then elaborate on it or riff back and forth with them or make a reference to something that may have happened in the lead up to them asking this question. Do you understand what I'm saying? Where it's like just knowing enough about somebody, it's not about asking the question. It's about, now I'm not even talking about like Olympic like depression. And now I'm talking about how to give an interview. It's not even asking the right questions. It's knowing what led into those moments of to why these are the right questions. And so that's why I think it's important to do that prep. Now we're back onto like the adrenaline of it all, right? Okay. So I just gave you a slight, like a TED Talk. I was going to say masterclass, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Okay. Bob Costas over here. Yeah, let's not get ahead of ourselves. But so basically what I am saying is that even though I'm sitting and watching, I'm not doing it. That's sort of like when the work stops. So we're back to like the work of the Olympics and the like emotional release. I'm going to say release because not letdown is not like the right phrasing. Not the phrasing I want to use. So it is that emotional release when you get like back, because you're doing that every single day on the journalism side of things of like, yes, the adrenaline isn't pumping as much as it would be if you were competing, but you're working like insane hours. I think I mentioned them on this podcast of like what I'd work. I would, sometimes start as I'd be lucky to start at like, it would change. My first days I started at 6:00 in the morning, and then it would end up being like 10 or 11, but my days would end around 4:00 in the morning. So, it's not a lot of sleep because you're as like working for NBC, your whole day is sort of like, it's based on the primetime show in the US, right? Because, we're American television. So the events might be over, but then they're prepping everything for primetime. And then they want some of those interviews with the athletes the next day live. So then you're planning your interviews around when those athletes will be at certain locations, so that you can interview them the next day. And then I'm also doing that like in addition to like other segments that I might be recording. And so basically, okay, now let's get back on track. I did kind of get off on a tangent for a second. But you also, just like the athletes, are living that way for 3 weeks straight. And it's just a really intense, like, whoa, that when you get home, it's like where are we again? Like, it feels totally disorienting. So I'm now about like a week and some change back in the United States of America. Like, I'm back home for about a week that I feel like my feet are more firmly planted. Now, just to kind of add insult to injury, don't know if I'm using that correctly. I will find out. Now, to make it even more chaotic, before I left for the Olympics, I've mentioned this 1 billion effing times on this podcast that I am opening a medical spa. And I think I even mentioned last week that I had a friend who was like, I now believe you because I did think that you were, that it was a bit. I'm like, well, I'm a little too far into it for it to be a bit now. So I hope you believe me, because now I would say I've bit off more than I can chew. I think I've bit off as much as I can chew. How about that? So that when I came back from the Olympics, I was getting right back into like the opening. And at this point, like, there's so many things that I've learned about starting a business, and especially starting a business, which, as we say in the business, a brick and mortar, which basically means it's like a place that you go to. Because obviously you can have a business where it's like, I make candles and I sell them online. Like, that's not going to be a brick and mortar business. Like, you could be doing that and selling them out of your garage. I'm not talking about the quality, right? Like, they could be the highest of quality candles. I'm just saying it's not brick and mortar. Okay. When you get a location, it's called brick and mortar. It is what it is. I didn't make it up. It sounds beautiful though, right? So there are so many different things. So basically, I was lucky enough to find a space that we love. And I really do love it. It's in a great location. It feels very private. It has great parking, which is really, I have not come back to businesses because the parking was so bad. Like, I've been like, I had a good experience, but I will never go back there because to park there was a nightmare. I will go back to places where I'm like, that was an easy place for me to park. Is that sad? It doesn't, honestly, here's the thing. Now, as a business launcher, it's not sad. It is what it is. And it was one of the criteria of like a good place, where it was like the parking has to be good. They need a parking lot. I also don't like parking on the street. Like, I want a parking lot. So we were lucky to find this like place. And basically what happens when you're doing like commercial real estate, you're a business that's brick and mortar, right? When you're doing commercial real estate, it's expected that if you're leasing this, like that the building wants you to be there for a few years. Do you know what I mean? This is not like residential where it's like year to year. Like this is commercial where it's like they want you to lease this, and usually like the lowest you can do a year to year. It's very unusual. And what I found, this is my first time doing it. So if you're like, that's not true, like, okay, maybe it's not true. I'm just telling you what I know. And this is sort of where we go from the Olympics to like starting a small local business. Whatever. If you're into it, you're into it. If you're not, log out. Don't. Keep listening. My like plea. Please keep listening. Okay. So where the F was I? I remember. I don't. That is the problem. I don't really remember. Brick and mortar. Okay. So because it's commercial, basically like they know, and if you think about it, it makes total sense, right? Like they know that like if one good business in their building can attract more business to their building. So it's in the best interest of the owner of whatever space you're renting out of that building, that like they try to appease and make the transition into the space as easy and successful as possible for the new business. So there's a few things that you can get into and a few terms you can agree to before you kind of open. So for instance, I was able to negotiate a few 3 months of rent. And when I say a few, I mean 2. Now, in some cases, you can get more, right? And in other cases, you can get a few free months. And sometimes you can get them to pay like a tenant allowance to you, where they'll give you some sort of like an amount of money per square footage to do some updates or renovations to the space, right? So, for instance, there was a location that I was looking at, and they were going to give us some sort of tenant allowance based on the square footage, and we could use that money to then do all of the renovations that we needed, because when we would be moving into that space, it would be what is considered a shell space. Okay. So when someone's like, they're just a shell of who they were, which is like, there's nothing to it. Like there's an outside and there's nothing inside, which is exactly what that space would look like. Concrete floor, right? Nothing. So I'm going to just give you the whole breakdown of it. Right? We went from talking about American hero Alyssa Liu to now I'm teaching you about commercial real estate. And this is sort of the brilliance and the ingenuity and innovative minds of like when they created podcasts, they were like, we never thought that this would be possible. And I'm making the impossible happen here. But hopefully I'm telling this in sort of like I'm juggling balls. I'm like I'm making this entertaining for everybody. Please keep listening. Okay. So nothing is more endearing than someone begging you to listen. And that's why I have those moments throughout the podcast where I'm like, please keep listening, because I know people love it. They eat that up. Okay. So I'm going to give you an example. I don't even think I shared this because I was in the middle of it, right? So there was a place that I was looking at that I really liked. It was in sort of like a strip mall kind of area. And this is what you also need to like imagine and recognize, is that when I say like strip mall in California, that really does mean that there's just like a lot of like outdoor space, and you're going to have a storefront. It's like an outdoor sort of mall space because we have great weather here. Like it's barely ever going to rain. And so this is like a really nice thing. Like you can find a really nice space in like an outdoor strip mall sort of situation. And it was this place where if you know Pasadena well, it was in Pasadena, California. I really wanted to find a space in Pasadena because that's where I live. I live in Pasadena. Love it. Pasadena pride here. Pasadena forever, baby. And so we have the Rose Parade every New Year's Day. I've never been. I've lived here this is my 6th year in Pasadena. I love it here. But they have this outdoor strip mall called the Paseo, and it's a beautiful space. Now, on one side of it is you can see our city hall, which in Pasadena we have, like, you should Google this. We have a beautiful city hall. Like, it's stunning. And then on the other side of the Paseo, we have the Pasadena Auditorium, where they just had the NAACP Image Awards there the other day. They film America's Got Talent there. Like, it's a huge auditorium. It's a beautiful space. And so we have those two beautiful buildings that are like opposite each other, and this like outdoor mall is like right in the center. And it is a beautiful space. And I was looking at something there and I was like, this could just be really beautiful. Now, back in the day, people tell me, like, it's an urban legend that like the Paseo was booming and buzzing. It is, and they've maintained it, and there's like a full like janitorial staff that is still on site. Like, they're still paying for that. But it has turned into what I have called a business graveyard. And I say that because I've gone through, because at first it was like nobody was calling me back, because I'll tell you that I worked with a commercial real estate agent, and this commercial real estate agent was like, I'm going to help you find something. And then like cut to, disappeared, ghosted me. And so then I was like, well, what do you do? And so basically what I learned is like, you go to different buildings and you just call the number on them. And it's kind of that straightforward. You just start calling the number that's on the building. You can go on something called LoopNet. I think it's called LoopNet for commercial real estate locations. And it's just like, that's how you do that. Like, it's not any of like, you got to get an agent. It's like, if you want to start a business, brick and mortar, like, just get online or start driving around calling numbers. That's literally what I did. I started driving around locations and started calling numbers. Yeah, you know, you got to do what you got to do. And so I was calling the number of the Paseo, and it was like nobody was calling me back. I'm like, this can't be real, because I was walking through and there were like 30 empty businesses, like nothing inside. And the like, I'm telling you, the space is well maintained. Okay. There's like a Regal Theater that still was there. There's a Starbucks that's still there. And it's like, they're all in good shape. Like, there's no reason for everything to be empty. And so I'm like, don't they want somebody there? And so like, I was negotiating with them for about a year, almost a full year before I did ghost them, because it was like, I asked a question and it would take like 2 weeks to get an answer. And I was like, but I really want this. And like would never hear effing back. And then finally it was like, somebody was like, I'll call you tomorrow. And I was like, if they don't call me tomorrow, I will never answer another call from these people. And they didn't call me tomorrow. And then they emailed me a week later and they were like, we'd really like to get this finished up soon. And I was like, you know what? Go fuck yourself, the Paseo. Fuck you and your dead old fucking businesses. And you want to know what? It's about another year later. And let's say it together. Those stores are all still fucking empty. Okay. So there are a bunch of crooks over there, con artists. They're doing something to like avoid taxes. I'm 100% sure. Allegedly, if they're listening to this. Well, first of all, if they're listening to this, and they get back to this faster than they ever got back to me about anything, whatever. So, okay, the whole reason I'm throwing the Paseo under the bus, even though it's gorgeous, I will stand by that. It is a beautiful place. The whole reason I'm doing that is because with them specifically, they would offer me like a tenant allowance because it was a shell space, had nothing. I'd need to build walls. I'd need to add additional plumbing, right? And so if you think in terms of like a business, I think what it would have ended up being is like they would have offered, but here's the catch. It's always like a catch. Okay. And the catch was that they would cover up to $30,000, which you're going to think is like, that's a lot, right? Believe me, give me a second. They cover up to $30,000 of basic and standard improvements. And that was the wording. And I was like, that sounds actually pretty good. I had somebody go over that like contract with me and they were like, don't sign this. And I was like, what do you mean don't sign this? And they're like, they're not telling you what they're considering as standard or basic. I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, here's the thing. They might say like, the walls in there are already standard and basic. You don't need additional walls. If you wanted additional walls or to create different additional spaces, let's say like a treatment room or a staff waiting room, anything like that, that might not be considered standard or basic to them. That might be considered additional. So they won't cover that. Or like, let's say that you want to paint the walls and you're telling them that this is the paint they want to use. And they're like, well, that's not basic paint. They might only cover like the cheapest like primer, but you have to buy any other colors that you want. So it's like they dangle this $30,000 in front of you when really what they will, and it's in an ideal world that this wouldn't happen, but it's like they could, at any point in time say like, this isn't considered basic or standard, or as it had been going, take 3 weeks to get an approval, right? And then on top of that, like if I needed to do plumbing there, I'd have to wait until I would get like permits from the city, which could take up to, because I had then at this point was obnoxious walking into other businesses and was like, how long did it take you to get a permit in the city? And I learned from one of my friends that I had made through this journey of like, it took them almost 1 year. 1 full calendar year to get a plumbing permit. So it was like, okay, this is just like not going to work. So yeah, I did ghost them. But they deserved it. Okay. I don't like, whatever. I'm not even sorry about it. I don't care because they left me on red so many times where I'd be like, I'd have to follow up like 10 times. I was like, hello, I still want to do this. And they'd be like, oh, right. So I don't even feel bad. And they said, we'd like to close this. It's like not like they were like, hey, following up on this. I did also never hear back from them too. Okay. So it's like I'm saying I'm ghosted, but I'm like the whole thing fizzled out. I will be writing them an email when we do open this medical spa location and be like, I just want you to know that I did find a location and that like I did not have a problem reaching out to the person I was specifically reaching out to, but I am going to write, and please forward this to your management, that like they made it impossible for some local business to come in, and I can still walk around, and I'm going to send a long ass email that I'm sure nobody will read. I'll read it to you on the podcast. Actually, I'm going to write that down. Read angry email. Hold on. I'm actually writing it down to the Paseo on podcast. Exclamation point. And then I'm going to write. It's just so I'm not like, what? Write angry. I have to, because I still need to do it. Email. Hold on. To the Paseo for, hold on. What should I say? What is this email? Write an angry email to the Paseo for emotional distress. I'll write that. for emotional distress. And then I'm writing like an M dash for emotional distress. Failed rental. There we go. I'll remember that. Oh, I have a highlighter here. I'm going to highlight it. Hold on. Highlight. Okay. Stay tuned for that segment. Oh, now it's going to motivate me to do this really well. I am going to, because I can get there pretty quickly. I'm going to go over there. I'm going to count 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to count all the places that are still empty. And I will see the last time that they reached out to me and be like, it has been this amount of time and you still haven't gotten anything done. And it was really the guy I was talking to. He was nice, but I want them to know that, I just want them to know that they tried to pull a fast one on me and it didn't work. Basically, what I'm getting to is this. Okay, what I'm getting to is this. The place that I found was not a shell space. It actually was set up in a way where I didn't need to do any renovations to it aside from and if you follow me on Instagram, I really was milking all the painting that I was doing. So I did a ton of painting in the space just to kind of spruce it up. We did a lot of cleaning. We added a bunch of things, some furniture, some whatever. So it was just I needed furniture and cabinetry and things like that, art. So it was just things of that nature that needed to be added into the space. And so that's really all that I did. I didn't need to do any construction, which saved me a lot of time. But also it meant that I could get 2 months of rent for free. And then what happened was absolutely this, that I need to start paying rent, which I've been having to pay. This is my 3rd month of paying. So I've decided with Tamar, who's my friend who I'm opening this up with, who is the injector extraordinaire, that I'm let's just fucking open up the calendars and whatever, next week. And we'll just start saying we're open. And I'm still trying to figure out a name for it because it's not pre-booking, but I'm we'll do a grand opening. I say in quotes, I don't know, in a month or 2. But we'll start taking clients and maybe I'll consider them I don't know, the soft launch clients. Maybe we'll let people come in who before the grand opening will get some sort of discount on whatever. Because it will basically kind of help us workshop some things and work a few bugs out with the billing or how everything goes in the setup of things and moving things around. So I think that's what we're going to do. So I think we could be open and taking clients as early as next week, but then we'll do a grand opening, right? Which will basically it's a marketing strategy. Okay. Which is basically I'll be we're open. And then I'll in a few months, you'll go not you'll, I will go, but we're really open now. Right. Because there's a bunch of things I'd still like to do, but it's what, you're going to wait and not open because you're waiting to get sweatshirts? No. You're paying rent, so you're going to wait to get a photo shoot done? No, get going. Because I will tell you that when you're advertising something, you need to tell people 35 times before they go, oh, wait, you're opening a business? Or in my case, you have to tell people for about 6 months that you're opening a business, and it takes them that long to realize that you're not doing a bit. Okay? So that's, that is sort of the that's what happens when you work in comedy, right? That people think what you do is a bit and not an LLC, right? Yeah, whatever. I am starting to reap the benefits of opening a medical spa. And some of those benefits are some of the things that we've gotten. The companies that we buy them from come in and they'll do a full training, which basically it's they just navigate you through the product. But we get so many products now that like I'm now trying out all of these different things. And I'm like, okay, this is kind of why I wanted to do this. I want the perks. And I'm going to start shooting some videos of like me getting some stuff done, which it's like, of course I'm doing that for the business, but I am like selfishly being like, I'm going to look gorgeous. Like I'm going to look so young and gorgeous and spry. So and I'm like, okay, here we go. Like here we motherfucking go. This is why we did this. This is why we do this, baby. Right. So that's what I'm really excited about. And so we're going to start doing that soon. And so I am also going to start like convincing some of my friends. I'm like, hey, you can get whatever you want done. But I need to film it because I need to do marketing stuff. I also will tell you where it was like, these products, to get them and acquire them before we even are like so fucking expensive. I don't know why in my mind I was like, Botox costs $10 and then you sell it for $1 million. No, it's about $1 million and you sell it for about $1 million. So that was a bit shocking. I'm still going to get it. Like I'm still going to get it done to me. But I'm really like, I've been writing out the menu, kind of all done. So basically another thing, it's like we have a website that I have to like finish building out, and we have like a booking website, which like that's where you'll book all the appointments and stuff. I am so lucky that we like live in a day and age of technology where it's like whatever we're doing, it's like we're not the first people to do it. So it's like things exist to help ease the flow of stuff. Does that make sense? To me, it doesn't. So hopefully to you, it does. Now, one of the other things, I'm trying out a lot of medical grade skincare. I'm saying it in quotes. I'm on the fence about it. I'm just going to say that. I'm going to post about it on my like Instagram stories because I just feel like I can elaborate in a way that I can't right now. Not that I'm like not at liberty to legally. It's just like I feel like I need to talk this out in a way where it's like I need to make sure everybody's seeing what I'm saying and showing and seeing it. That's all I have to say on that. Because we're looking for, so basically we need like products that we can use to like, we are going to need to wash people's faces, and you know we're going to need to give them some sunscreen on the way out, and so like we're just trying to find a reputable, good, high quality products. Basically the thing with medical grade is that like, so this is how they try to position it, and I get it. I'm just like not fully on board yet. That here's the thing, if it were any better, they would be prescription. Right? You'd have to get a prescription for it. And I understand there's different levels of whatever. Like there's no going to be prescription moisturizer, right? But if it really did something crazy, they would make it prescription. Are you following? Because that company would make more money. Like it's all about more money. So like whatever. So for instance, like a medical grade skincare, they call it medical grade because they'll do a lot of like extra like testing, and they'll have a lot of studies done in-house, multiple like peer-reviewed studies. That's sort of like their what they'll go to. It's not like if you have a skincare like Naturium, for instance, or CeraVe, right? Like it's not like they're like, well, we don't have any studies. We're just soap. Like they also have a lot of studies. Do you know what I'm saying? Where I'm like, there are some products though that it's like, listen, we're going to have to do a deeper dive on it. And I'm going to need a lot of alive people's opinions. Because for instance, like if I'm going to pay a higher price point of something that's like, let's say not a CeraVe. I use CeraVe face wash, by the way, because it's dermatologist recommended. But like moisturizer, I'm just going to kind of use like whatever, right? Like I'm just going to kind of use whatever moisturizer because it's the last step. I'm putting things on before it's whatever. It's to basically to seal in what I'm putting on before, right? So when it comes to something like that, so if I'm going to get something like a La Mer, right? So a lot of people love La Mer. You can get like a big tub of La Mer. And I say big, it's like the size of like Neutrogena, like that hydro gel moisturizer. Okay. Like that blue thing. I think it's about $20. Okay. Which is a little bit, I think a little bit high for a moisturizer. Like it's just a moisturizer, $20. The same kind of size for a La Mer is about $500. Now there's a few different things too. Like I don't think that's reasonable. I don't think that's right. I don't think anybody should be using La Mer. I'll say that. It is basically like, why is it like hydrating and why does it like, it's mineral oil. Okay. It's mostly mineral oil. And that's why, and like that oil works as like an occlusive where basically like the water can't like, it will keep the water within the skin. It traps it from like leaving and drying you out. Like, and so you could just use mineral oil, right? You could just use like marula oil from Trader Joe's. That's $8. Okay. It's just oil. It's oil. It's not magic oil. It's oil. Right. And one is $8 and one is $500. Okay. And at the end of the day, they're kind of doing the same thing. But the thing is with the La Mer, you're also kind of paying for like the experience where like the jar is heavy and it's glass. And it's like, this is a luxury product. It's has a nice scents in it, which like, to be honest, a lot of scents can be irritating to the skin. I'm just saying. La Mer, I am just saying. But like, I can see that. But some of this like, medical grade skincare that I've been given to try out, very high level stuff, right? And we would be selling it. And again, it's like we would be making $10 on the sale. Like it is nothing to be like, you gotta get in this market. Couldn't really recommend that. But it's something that we'd have to sell at like a tiny tube of something costs $200. And it's in a plastic light feeling jar. Like I cannot so that's why I need to get on Instagram and I need to kind of talk this over because I'm sure there's people who are like, no, it's like use this for, and I'm using it right now. And I'll say that I have like no sort of tinted whatever on and I'm looking at my skin. I'm like, it looks nice. I've been using it for 2 or 3 days now, which is like, that's not enough time for you to like be like, it works. Okay. You need a few days, especially if it's not prescription strength. Because if it worked really well, you'd have to get a prescription for it. You just have to think of like, what's the best way for them to make money? And if there was no way for them to get it, like, to be called a prescription, okay, then what's the difference between that and CeraVe besides like the in-house clinical tests? I'm still I'm figuring this part out. Right. Because to me, I don't know how I feel about it yet, but I'm going to need to like talk this out on. And then this feels like Instagram stories. I'm going to need to talk this out because I'm going to need people to like get back to me quick. But anyway, I don't know if we really talked about really anything of substance or substantial, but I definitely feel like this podcast episode was way more organized, orderly than any of the other ones that we've done. And when I say any of the other ones we've done, I mean just the one from last week where I was sort of like in a complete blackout. Did we answer any text messages? No, we didn't. Did I do any voicemails? No, I did just talk. And I want you to know that on this list, I wanted to talk about a voiceover audition that I didn't do that. I wanted to talk about, I'm thinking about tailoring all of my pants, which I know is like not interesting to you, but it's something I want to talk about. I wrote here, making smoothie. I didn't talk about that. I wrote also in quotes, also making eggs. There was something there. And these are just things that, oh God, I'm sure you're kicking yourselves that I never got to. Um, tailoring all pants. I know what I wanted to say, and in my mind it was like, this will be fun. And now looking back at it, I'm like, what the fuck? Anyway, that's why this show is called Intrusive Thoughts. And if you have any intrusive thoughts that you'd like to share with me and our audience, please go ahead. Please go ahead before our grand opening of the... Oh, wait, I've never even told you the name of this spa. I can't. We're going to do a bigger deep dive because I feel like we'll be medical spa heavy next week. But I'm going to tell you why we've named it this. But the name of the medical spa is called the Atami Aesthetics Club. And it's the Atami, Atamii. And it's a cliffhanger because we will be talking about why. Again, this is probably just as exciting to you as hearing that I was going to be talking about tailoring all my pants. But we'll be talking about why it is named that next week. I'm going to write that down. Maybe I'll even have write angry email to the Paseo for emotional distress. Failed rental, right? Maybe we'll be doing all that. Can't wait for me to absolutely forget about all of that. And that's just the way that it goes here at Intrusive Thoughts. If you have intrusive thoughts that you'd like to share with me or any of our listeners, I'd love to hear from you. We have a phone number that you can call or text from anywhere in the world. It is, if you're international, +1. And if you're local, 310-909-7117. Again, that number is 310-909-7117. Call or text us with your intrusive thoughts. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for listening. My name is Adam Rippon, and these have been my intrusive thoughts. Bye, everybody.